Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1 Episode 5 review of Scooby Doo Where Are You? So last time I continued my 2024 Summer Special with a review of Season 1 Episode 9 of the new Scooby Doo movies. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts and my review on the second Don Knotts episode. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 1 Episode 5 of Scooby Doo Where Are You, titled Decoy for a Dog Napper, which was released on October 11th, 1969. The short synopsis of the episode is, when Mystery Inc. hear about a series of dog nappings, they investigate using Scooby as a decoy for another dog. When he gets dog napped, the gang track him to a secret hideout in the desert where they face a witch doctor and a ghostly Indian on horseback. So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 1 Episode 5 of Scooby Doo Where Are You on the Scooby Doo Where Are You, the complete series box set. This box set has everything you want as a Scooby Doo fan, you know, especially of the original series. Every episode of the original series is on there. It has good special features, which I talk about in my Season 2 Episode 8 review. And it has the third season of the Scooby Doo show, which is marketed as the fake third season, which I've talked about plenty of times, so I don't need to go in depth with that, but yeah. Now, as far as how this episode is received, it's not received very highly by Scooby-Doo fans. I believe most fans don't really like this episode and consider it one of the weaker episodes of the original series. And some of the people are valid with it, which is just being they just don't like the elements of the episode. But a lot of people like to point towards this episode being racist because, you know, of how Indian and Native American culture is depicted and how the villain ends up being a white man dressed up as a Indian or Native American, witch doctor. But honestly, I think that's ridiculous. I think, like, it's fine if you... Like, I'm not saying that it isn't, you know, maybe being disrespectful to that culture, because it was the 60s. Like, they didn't know any better. Hanna-Barbera didn't know all this stuff. And it just wasn't a big deal to them back then. But I think it's stupid to say, well, because the villain is this way, I'm not going to watch the episode. I think you should give each episode a chance, despite of what you might not like as far as racism. And Mystery Mask Mix-Up has been accused of that as well. But it's a different time. You know, we're not supposed to look at it through a modern lens. And quite honestly, like, the stuff that people consider racist in this episode, I don't really consider this episode to be racist at all. It's just another Scooby-Doo mystery episode. It's not meant to be taken that seriously, and I think people are just stretching for stuff to be mad about. Now, if you think it's racist and you don't like how Indians are depicted, you're allowed to think that way, but I would suggest, like, if you don't like the episode, go in depth about other things besides it being racist, because that's unfair to this episode and the creators. And you're also you're stretching it and you're looking at it through a modern lens, rather than being fair to the episode and saying, okay, this was made in 1969. I might not see stuff that's considered acceptable today. Let's just go through it. And honestly, nothing they really do I consider to be racist in this episode at all. I don't really look for that stuff, and I don't really care to, because it's not... It doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't matter. It's a different time period. I know that. You know, I'm going in there knowing this is an old Scooby-Doo cartoon. It's going to be treated... You know, things are going to be treated differently than how things were today. So, yeah, I just felt like I needed to address that, you know, a lot of people... you know, kind of don't like this episode because they think it's kind of racist and insensitive to Native American or Indian culture. And they're fine to believe that, but, you know, I personally think it's a stretch. I think it's being misrepresenting the episode, and it's not being fair to the episode, because instead of looking at the quality of the episode and the actual elements, like the mystery and the gang and the villain and all that, they're just looking at how a culture is being represented, which wasn't the focus of the episode. They didn't care about that. That wasn't the point of the episode. And, people are allowed to be upset with that, like I said, but I personally think it's stupid, it's a stretch, and I think, it's not that big a deal, so... But anyways, in my previous review, I actually rated Decoy for a Dog Napper pretty highly. I remember giving it a 5 out of 5, so it does have a second chance for me to verify if my rating was right, or whether I might have been high on it, so will my opinion drop on this episode? Will it drop to an average or a negative opinion? Or will it stay the same, and will I be as high as I was on it the first time around? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of Scooby Doo Are You? The episode begins very differently compared to other episodes, with Scooby out on a walk, and he sees a prize poodle pass by, and he tries to impress her. It doesn't work, but then he sees the prize poodle get kidnapped, and so he decides to race to find the rest of the gang. I guess it took him all day, because it somehow went from day to night. Could have also been an animation error. And this is one of the few times where Scooby's by himself, walking by himself in the beginning, which is interesting. And Scooby turns on the radio for the gang, and after listening to a radio broadcast about a rash of dog nappings in the area, the gang decide that this is a mystery they need to tackle. So they visit one of the victims, Buck Masters, who thinks that the dog nappings are related to an upcoming dog show. So with Buck Masters getting the Scooby Gang up to speed on all the dog show competitors, and who the last remaining dog is that hasn't been kidnapped on that's related to the dog show, the gang decide to play this hunch, and they decide to substitute Scooby as a decoy for a prize-winning Great Dane belonging to Bob Miller, another show competitor involved in the dog show. The ploy ends up working as Scooby is grabbed by the dog nappers as he's mistaken for the prize-winning Great Dane belonging to Bob Miller, and so Shaggy jumps into action to go save his best pal, which I love, and is why I like this dog napping scene, because we get to see Shaggy's full, bravery on display, and how much he cares about his best friend, and willing to put his life on the line to do anything to save his buddy. And we also get to meet, if not a friend of the gang's, then at least a friend of Shaggy's, named Charlie, who's a gas station attendant, and Shaggy asks for his motor scooter to borrow because he needs a way to catch up with the dog nappers. I think it's cool that we get to meet one of the gang's other friends. I think this is the first time that happens, I'm pretty sure. I think this is the first instance of that. We don't really see Charlie again, although I think the motor scooter that Shaggy borrowed from Charlie does pop up in Don't Fool with the Phantom again. So Shaggy might have, either borrowed it again in a later episode, or he might have taken it with him, and Charlie might have just gotten another one. But I like the scene, like I said, because of Shaggy's bravery. I like the outfit Shaggy's wearing, too. I think that's really cool. It's a nice, unique outfit that he doesn't have. I just like seeing Shaggy being brave and putting his life on the line for his best pal. It's a good showcase of that. I love when they showcase Shaggy or Scooby saving one another, because it's a great showcase of their friendship and how they're best friends.
Look at that truck smoke! Whoa! 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 Scooby! They got him! Whoa! 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 I'm coming, Scooby! I'm coming! I'll never catch him this way! Charlie! Charlie! You got any wheels I can borrow? This is an emergency!
Just my motor scooter.
Thanks, man!
Shaggy gives chase on a motor scooter, but loses the dog napper's truck when he's menaced by a ghostly Indian on a horseback, who Shaggy says is named the Ghost of Geronimo. So I guess Shaggy and everyone else knows about him. Meanwhile, the dog napper's ringleader, the Indian witch doctor, which is our first introduction to the Indian witch doctor, which is a very bad introduction. They don't even try to hide the fact that this guy is just a person in a costume and not an actual ghost in this episode. They don't try to fool you with that facade. This is like one of the worst openings for a villain ever. So this Indian witch doctor recognizes that Scooby's is not Miller's Great Dane, and he has his henchman, who he calls Mike, put Scooby on a handcar and send him down the mountain. We then cut back to the rest of the gang following the tracking beacon on Scooby's collar, and they catch up with Shaggy, and then they watch as Scooby go, and once they reunite with Shaggy, they go over what they find. Velma, I think, finds an Indian relic of some kind, and then they realize Scooby's tracker is moving again, so they plot an intercept course, and they then watch as Scooby goes racing down the railroad track, and Shaggy saves Scooby by leaping onto the handcar, and he applies the brakes and rides it back to safety just ahead of the Midnight Express train. Once again, I love this scene because I love seeing Shaggy save Scooby and putting his life on the line for his best pal. I love when they showcase, you know, Shaggy or Scooby saving each other. Like I said, it's a good showcase of their friendship, you know, and them being best friends. It just is a very awesome scene to see, and it just is great when I get to see Shaggy saving his best pal. It's always such a great, wholesome moment, and shows how much these two care about each other, that they'll risk their lives for each other. Like, Shaggy and Scooby both could have easily died had Fred, Daphne, and Velma not switched that railroad track to help Shaggy and Scooby get away from this train, because I guess this train didn't see them.
As a decoy, you're a dud. Well, so long, Pooch. Enjoy the ride. Hey, that was Scooby. Hey, Scooby Doo. Hang on, Scooby. We'll save you. Hurry, Freddy. Give her the gas. 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and here I go. We're on a trestle.
Boy, was that close.
As soon as we slow down, Scooby, I'll get you out of that crate. What's that? Sounds like the Midnight Express. Yo, it is. I hope this is the brake. It's rusty. It's not holding.
Roll help! Roll help!
Yo! Watch it.
Faster! Faster!
I'm going faster.
Here they come! That train is awfully close.
There was a switch by the crossroad. Come on, let's go!
Scooby then leads them back to where he had been taken to, which was an abandoned Indian village high up on in a cliff. I don't think Scooby knew it was an abandoned village. I think he was just going in the direction he remembered. Maybe he did see it. I don't know. One thing I like to mention is that when Scooby and Shaggy escape the train and they're saved, Daphne and Velma ask Scooby if he's okay, and Fred's like, "Oh, this is all very nice, but it doesn't help solve the mystery." I'm like, Fred, your 2 best pals just died. You can take a back seat on the mystery for a second. Check if your friends are okay, because they literally almost just fucking died from a train. So have a little bit more better priorities, Fred, because I know you want to solve this mystery, and trust me, I get it, but friendship comes first, and you need to check if your friends are okay first before just being like, yeah, whatever, Scooby, tell us where we need to go. Like, no, Fred, ask if he's okay. You know, this is your dog, this is your best pal. You know, they both could have died, I know, and I'm glad you helped save them, but check if they're okay, too. Like, that's very mean, Fred. That's not what a good best friend would do. When the gang arrive in the abandoned Indian village high up in the cliff, they then encounter the Indian witch doctor who appears and warns them off, which is our first instance of seeing him in his facade. And it's pretty lame. He just shakes maracas and gives a vague threat, speaks English. It especially is undermined by the fact that we just saw him like a few scenes ago talking normally. So, yeah. But the gang separates and presses on. How they separate, I have no fucking clue. They're just walking normally, and then bats come down, and then somehow that separates Shaggy, Velma, and Scooby from Fred and Daphne. I don't know how that happened, but apparently it did. And after some shenanigans with the bats, and Scooby having Velma's glasses, and Shaggy getting Velma's glasses back to her, we cut to Fred and Daphne, who once again meet the Indian witch doctor again, who gives them another vague threat. And Fred wants to go... Daphne vanishes, basically, when Fred wants to go investigate the stone idol in front of where, the witch doctor had been standing. Daphne didn't want to go anywhere near that. She just wanted to sit right there. But she disappeared. And then somehow we cut back to Scooby and Shaggy, who are somehow separated from Velma. How? I have no idea. Like before, with Fred and Daphne and Shaggy and Velma and Scooby getting separated, how did Shaggy and Scooby lose Velma? Never explained. I have no idea how this happened. But they're led into like a kitchen area or pantry area where the food's held. And Scooby becomes separated from Shaggy after he gets pushed down a passageway from a mysterious hand. Whose hand that is, I don't know. I doubt it's the witch doctor, because he would know where that goes. I don't know if it could have been Mike, maybe. Could have been him. I don't know if it looked like his hand. But, he ends up finding Daphne, who's tied up, next to the imprisoned dogs, who are in cages. After Scooby and Daphne Scooby helps Daphne get free, they reunite with Fred and Velma as well, and then, go into the room that they're all in. And everybody's reunited except for Shaggy. He's off somewhere with a sandwich. But Fred asks Scooby if he can help lead the way, ask the other prize-winning dogs on where the Indian witch doctor is. And he says that he knows the way, and him and the dogs lead the way, with Shaggy trying to find Scooby after he makes a sandwich. And he mistakenly thinks that Scooby and the dogs are coming after him for a sandwich, but they're actually just leading the way for the rest of the gang. But yeah, the gang end up reuniting after Shaggy, knows what's going on, and Fred, Daphne, Velma tell Shaggy to follow him, follow them. And, they chase down the witch doctor, and they unmask him as, surprise, surprise, Buckmasters. The only suspect in the episode, not too surprising. And he has a lengthy speech at the end. Although I do think Fred kind of redeems himself a little bit, because I like what he says at the end of saying, catching dog nappers is our business, Mr. Masters. Scooby-Doo's our dog, and we love him very much, which at least is a nice, sentiment. I wish he had done that earlier to make sure Scooby and Shaggy were okay after they almost literally died. But hey, I'll accept that. But I like the final chase scene. It's humorous. I like the final chase scene to catch the Indian witch doctor, seeing Scooby being, taking charge, being brave, to go catch the witch doctors, because to him this mystery's personal. And we get a lot of fun shenanigans with Shaggy and his sandwich, and then falling down. And it's just cool.
While I'm searching for Scooby, I'll just finish this little morsel. What a close shave! That was almost a catastrophe.
Hey, Shaggy, come on, follow the dogs.
napper.
You blasted kids! Why didn't you mind your own business?
Catching dog nappers is our business, Mr. Masters. After all, Scooby Doo is a dog, and we love him very much.
The episode ends with the gang explaining that it had been Master's plan to kidnap all the dogs who might have beaten his own dog in the competition and then release his dog in time to win the competition. The ghost Indian on a horseback, which was Geronimo, the ghost of Geronimo, was just made with a movie projector from the back of Master's truck. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 5 of Scooby Doo Where Are You? 3 stars out of 5. So yeah, my opinion has changed a lot on the episode. It's definitely not the same. I mean, it's still, I don't consider it a bad episode, but my opinion has definitely dropped to more of like, yeah, this is like an average or okay episode. Not really one of the better episodes of Scooby Doo Where Are You? I think I might have just been very positive about it because I liked Shaggy and Scooby's characterization in the episode, and I liked what they got to do because their friendship was on full display in the episode, and I still hold that belief, but I definitely found a lot more negatives with it than I initially did the first time around, and I think I might have excused it just because of Shaggy and Scooby, and I don't think that was fair of me. So let's go into what holds this episode back for me first before we get on to what I think is good about the episode. Starting with the negatives, the first negative that I have is that I don't like Daphne and Velma's characterization in this episode. I don't like how they're utilized. I think they were very weak. Daphne and Velma just didn't really have much to do. Yeah, they were sympathetic towards Scooby, and Velma and Daphne did work some of the computer equipment that was tracking Scooby, and Velma did find the Indian relic. These are just like tiny moments, though. They don't really do a lot for their characters in this episode, and I don't know. I wasn't really impressed with them. I think they could have done a lot better with, them as a whole in this episode, so yeah, I wasn't really happy with how Daphne and Velma were utilized. Velma didn't really piece together any clues to help solve the mystery, and she didn't really do anything else, and then Daphne also didn't have anything stand out either, so they just didn't get enough moments to shine in this episode. Next, I found the villain of the episode to be pretty weak and bland, if I'm being quite honest. He was not funny or scary. The Indian Witch Doctor is one of the lamest Scooby-Doo villains I've ever come across. I mean, he got the worst introduction. All he did was shake maracas to try to be scary. It wasn't really threatening or scary. There was nothing scary about him because his introduction was awful. You could tell right away that it was Buck Masters because he was just talking in his normal voice. And it's just like they didn't really try to hide the fact that this guy was a man behind a mask. And they made it too obvious and took away the mystery of the episode, or that question, that part of the mystery, because basically, you gave away that not only is this guy not, potentially a ghost, which I don't want the monsters to be real. I've made that clear. I don't like real monsters or real ghosts in Scooby-Doo. I like the facade of it. The facade wasn't held up, and I think this guy, was just, he was lame, and he wasn't entertaining or funny. I definitely prefer the Hawaiian Witch Doctor. I think the Hawaiian Witch Doctor is much more funny than him. He's a lot more entertaining. He has some intimidating moments, too. I think the Hawaiian Witch Doctor is a lot better. This Witch Doctor, though, is pretty lame and boring. They just didn't really give him anything good to do. Like, he was very weak. One of the worst villains of Scooby-Doo. Definitely not the worst, because, although he was bad because of how obviously fake he was, there's definitely other villains that have that same problem, too. So he's not the only one at fault for this, and he might not even be the worst case, because, you have guys dressing up as Sheik Ghost that are so obviously fake, so those are usually worse, but still, weak villain. The Indian Witch Doctor was awful. Ghost of Geronimo was cool, though. I didn't mind the Ghost of Geronimo, but technically the Ghost of Geronimo isn't really the villain. I would consider the Indian Witch Doctor the real villain, and he's lame. He sucks. I found the clues of the episode to be pretty lacking as well. You only had that really one clue, which was the Indian relic that Velma found near the railroad tracks, or by the side of the road. That didn't really help point towards a suspect or a motive. it didn't really forward the mystery much. So I didn't really see any clues here to really help point towards, narrow down the suspects or help point towards a suspect or help drive forward the mystery in any way, by maybe, like, showcasing that it could, what their motive could possibly be. There just wasn't anything there, and I think they could have done a lot better with the clues. They didn't put enough clues in this episode. It was lacking. Then we have the lack of suspects in the episode. There's really only one suspect, and that's Buck Masters. We never see anyone else throughout the episode. I think it would have been cool had we seen Bob Miller. Had we actually seen Bob Miller, that might have actually been good, because then we could have had a second suspect, and that could have actually worked. But because he wasn't shown and just mentioned by name, we only have Buck Masters. And by the time the Indian Witch Doctor was revealed, the first instance we saw him talking normally, it was pretty obvious that it was Buck Masters. Like, you could tell by the voice. So, I mean, I'm glad they at least had it be someone that we saw, but it was too easy to guess the suspect. Like, there was only one suspect. There wasn't really much of a mystery there, because there was only one guy you could really guess. There's not, multiple suspects. So they could have made Bob Miller a suspect, and I think that would have helped. That would have at least fulfilled the bare minimum, because at least if you have two suspects, that at least gives you a 50-50 shot. But yeah, one suspect is too little. You need to do more than that for, like, you need to at least do two for one villain. And then finally, I found the atmosphere of the episode to be pretty non-existent. I didn't feel any tension or suspense or scariness or creepiness or eeriness or any sort of spook factor. Not just because the villain was weak and didn't really help it at all, but there wasn't anything in any of the settings that, naturally, that made the suspect, that made that made the atmosphere feel like, filled with tension or suspense or with spook factor or scariness or creepiness or eeriness. There wasn't really much in the atmosphere to really fear for the gang's safety. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that not only is the beginning weird, with it being kind of bright and vibrant, with, Scooby walking out in in daylight in the autumn, but even when it is nighttime for a lot of the episode, which is the case, it feels more like an adventure and less of a mystery. It just doesn't really feel like a spooky, scary Scooby Doo mystery. It kind of feels more like a Scooby Doo adventure mystery. And not that I mind those if you do those right, but to be quite honest, the atmosphere didn't really complement it well, because there wasn't anything that really threatened the gang's safety. You just had the ghost of Geronimo, and, it was just ended up being a projection, but the ghost didn't really do anything threatening. And the Indian Witch Doctor just shook maracas to try to be intimidating and threaten the gang a little bit, but he didn't really do anything to make, himself a threat or a presence. Likewise, like the settings he was in just didn't really provide that, much of a threat or any sort of spookiness or scariness. There just wasn't anything natural or anything by the villain to make this atmosphere very scary, intense, and suspenseful. I just found it very non-existent, and I just didn't find anything in any atmosphere in this episode. That's all I got for negatives, so I think it's about time we get on to the positives of the episode and what I like about the episode. Well, starting off with the positives, I thought Fred was a good leader in this episode. I did like Fred in this episode. I thought he was a good leader. And I did like the moment at the end saying that, catching dog nappers is his business because Scooby-Doo's their dog and they love him very much. Not only does that show that they love Scooby, but they're willing to do a mystery for Scooby and something personal for Scooby because they care about dogs too, just as much as humans. And they don't like seeing dogs getting kidnapped. Not just because it makes their best friend Scooby upset and it's personal to him, but because they don't like to see it either. It's not a nice thing to do. It's an evil act. But I didn't like when Fred was very dismissive when Shaggy and Scooby had just escaped a dangerous situation from almost dying from a train, and he didn't ask if they were okay. He just kind of went like, this is all nice, but this doesn't help solve the mystery. Come on, Fred, you gotta be better than that. Like, check your friend's safety first before you prioritize your friends first before the mystery. I think Fred needs to learn that, and it wasn't a good showcase for Fred, but he redeemed himself at the end, so I'll give him a pass for that. I still don't like that he did that in the episode, but I did like his line at the end, and I did feel he was a good leader overall in this episode. And then we have Shaggy and Scooby. Now, like I said previously, Shaggy and Scooby were a lot of the reason why I liked the episode the first time around and why I ranked it so highly. And I still love them a lot in this episode. So, Shaggy I really liked because I liked how brave he was in the episode. He put his life on the line for his best friend Scooby. He did everything he could to make sure his best friend Scooby wouldn't, die or get hurt. When Scooby was kidnapped, he jumped into action. He tried to catch up with the dog nappers and get his dog back. It was all hands on deck. When Scooby was put on the rail tracks and was tied up in that, box on the rail car, Shaggy put his life on the line again because he tried to save Scooby from dying from a train, because had he not done that, not only would have Scooby died, but Shaggy would have died too had Fred not, switched the railroad tracks. So Shaggy did a lot of bravery in this episode, and I really liked it, and he was kind of fun at the end. I did like how he saved, he thought the dogs were after a sandwich, then ate it. And then he kind of, had a little, had a hard time getting down the stairs of the Indian village and kind of broke them a little bit, or, some type of ladder or whatever. He had some... He wasn't as humorous, but he definitely... He made up for that with his bravery for Scooby. And like I said, I like when they showcase Shaggy or Scooby saving each other, because that shows how much their friendship means to one another, and how they really are best friends because they will put their lives on the line for one another. I also like when they do that for the gang too, but I specifically love it when Shaggy and Scooby save each other from, a threat or a danger. When one's in danger, they will do everything. The other one will do everything in their power to save their best pal, because they don't want to lose him. And Shaggy doesn't want to lose Scooby. He doesn't want these dog nappers to hurt him. So, and this is his best pal. This is his dog, and he'll do everything he can to save him. And I love that. I love how this episode showcases that, and Shaggy was great. As for Scooby, I like Scooby in the episode because also I like how Scooby's just as brave as Shaggy, but in a different way. Yeah, Scooby's reluctant to be a decoy for the dog nappers when when they're like, we need a decoy to find the dog nappers' hideout, and they use Scooby as bait. He's reluctant to do so, but every other time he's very proactive. He still does it. Technically, he still does do it, and he's brave, not just for putting himself on the line, but for trying to do everything in his power to stop these dog nappers. Because I like how he also is a bit of a leader as well in this episode. This is very proactive episode for Scooby, because Scooby very much is all in on this mystery. This mystery is very personal to him, and you understand why, because it's a mystery where dogs are getting kidnapped, and Scooby is a dog, and and seeing these dogs get kidnapped, makes him feel, upset, and makes him be courageous, because he's like, I gotta help my brethren. But also, I can relate to Scooby. I don't like seeing dogs get kidnapped or put in dangerous situations. So I kind of like the change up a little bit, and it makes sense. This isn't a random mystery where, why is Scooby being brave for this mystery but not other ones? No, he's being brave and a bit of a leader in this mystery because this is a personal one to him, because it involves dogs, which he is a dog, so naturally he would want to help save dogs. And I like that. I like that he helps lead the dogs at the end to kidnap the Indian witch doctor and unmask him as Buck Masters. So I thought Scooby was great. Not only did he put his life on the line as a decoy for these dog nappers, and how these dog nappers almost killed him, had Shaggy and the rest of the gang not saved him. But he also was a bit of a leader because this was a personal mystery to him, a mystery he wanted solved, because these were, his brethren, these other dogs were being kidnapped. And he also wanted to help catch the dog nappers. He doesn't like seeing these evil people kidnapping dogs, and I like that aspect of Scooby. And this is a good mystery to make Scooby brave and a bit of a leader. So I like how Scooby was in this episode. He was great. I think outside of costume, Buckmasters was actually pretty good. Buckmasters was good because he got the gang up to speed on the competitors in the dog show and how he thought the dog show could be related to the dog nappings. And that in turn helped the gang not only know, like, hey, Masters might have a point. These dog show competitors, there does seem to be a pattern. Why don't we take his hunch and put it to the test? His motive was also good too. I like that his motive is that he wanted to get rid of the other dogs so his dog could win the dog show competition without any interference or any competition from the other dogs. Like, his dog would be a full, a shoo-in. It'd be a guaranteed win. I think that's a very unique and interesting motive to be like, this guy isn't doing it for money or for land. I think he's doing it for recognition. He wants his dog to win easily so he can have another reward, another award and more clout and more, so that he can be held in prestige and held highly by other, competitors or other dog show related people. This is very much a motive that, is more so related to recognition. That's not something we see a lot of. I do like a recognition motive. I think that's interesting. He's not doing it for any other, a money or land gain, land motive. He's doing it because he wants some sort of recognition in his community, because he wants him and his dogs, he wants to be viewed as like this amazing, like, dog, show competitor and breeder or whatever, and viewed very highly by his community. And he's willing to do that by evil means, by kidnapping other dogs. Now, thankfully, he doesn't hurt the dogs, or else I would really dislike him. But he still cages them up and steals them, and I think it's a good, unique motive. I think it's good. It's something we hadn't seen before, and I think it's going to be a while before that motive is revisited, but I think it's good. I like the uniqueness of the motive. It's something different. It's something we haven't seen before. I found the mystery of the episode to be pretty good, in my opinion. I think the mystery was good because basically you wanted to know who was kidnapping these dogs and why. So who's behind these dog nappings, and what's their purpose? What's their motive? Why are they doing it? And it's interesting because, like, I love dogs, and seeing dogs put into, like, a dangerous situation, being kidnapped, that's a very high-stakes mystery. You're like, oh my god, these dogs are getting kidnapped. Is this person, just kidnapping them for, like, a small purpose, or is he doing more evil things to these dogs? You really don't know, so your mind goes wandering, and you're like, I really hope the gang solves this mystery, because this mystery could either be dark or very small scale, but either way, like, it's a very broad and open mystery, because, like, you don't know who exactly is kidnapping the dogs and what purpose they're kidnapping these dogs for. And then finally, I like the setting of the episode. I think the setting had a lot of variety in the episode. So first we had the town that the gang lived in, presumably, because the gang feel like they're at home. This feels like their hometown. This feels like their community. They feel, like they're just kind of relaxing in this town. They don't feel like they're visiting this town. It feels more like this is their hometown. I like that. I like seeing their hometown. I think it's really cool, and I think they use similar backdrops for the Backstage Rage. So I think that does solidify it. I do like seeing the gang's hometown, even though it's not stated where it's at. I do like seeing their community and what it looks like. I think it's really cool. And then we have the outskirts of the town, or what they call Indian Gap, apparently is what they call it in the episode. it's just a lot of mountain and desert. You know, it's very repetitive in its nature. And then there's the cliff, the Indian village high on the cliff. It's cool. It's okay. It's nothing fascinating or interesting. It works for the episode, but it's nothing special. I think personally, I do like the variety in the setting, but I think what saves the setting as well is that I just like seeing the gang's hometown. I like seeing them in their hometown, and, you know, just kind of, we get to see different set pieces in the town, like the beach, and, the gas station, and all these different buildings, you know, and Scooby walking in the neighborhood, you know, in this fall, autumn type day, you know. I do like the variety of the setting. I think it's a decent enough setting. It works for the episode. It's nothing special. I wouldn't say it's one of the better settings of Scooby Doo. It definitely isn't. You know, the best thing about the setting is that it's the gang's hometown in the original series. But Indian Gap and the Indian Village are kind of just fine. They work for the episode, but, you know, the Indian Gap's very repetitive, you know, with how it looks. And it's just like a plain place, you know, because it's just a bunch of mountain and desert and all that. And the village, like, you know, it's just a village on a cliff. Like, it's nothing special. It's just a dilapidated village in a cliff. I mean, it's okay. It's kind of interesting, but it's nothing special. I think what saves it is the variety of the setting, you know, how they switch locations throughout the episode. But really, it's just because I like seeing the gang's hometown. Overall, guys, I would still recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. It's a decent enough episode. It's definitely more an experimental episode. You could tell this is the early phase of Scooby Doo. They didn't quite know what they wanted to be, and this, like, they tried this, and this just doesn't really feel a lot like Scooby Doo. It feels like very something different, and I don't think it's bad. It has a lot of good aspects to it, and I like the uniqueness of it, but, you know, I think overall, like, there's definitely slightly, you know, more good aspects to it than bad, but there's still a lot of bad aspects to it that I just can't in good conscience consider it a good episode, but it's a decent enough episode. It's not the worst I've seen in the series. There will be far worse episodes. You know, it's on par with, like, A Clue for Scooby-Doo and One Night for Night. They work, they're decent, they're fine, but they're nothing special. You know, it is what it is. Like, it's not a bad episode. I appreciate that they tried to be experimental and try to do something different, but some things just didn't stick well in this episode. There was just a lot of bad aspects to it, but thankfully there was a lot of good too. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Do you think that's, you know, better than I'm making it out to be? Like, are there more good aspects to it? Do you like the uniqueness of it? Do you like that it's experimental and tries new things? Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Like, is it, you know, hopefully it's because, like, of the aspects in the episode and not because of, like, any sort of racism or anything. But I guess if you want to say, I guess if there's an argument for the racist thing, you could say why. You know, are there more bad aspects to it than you that don't work for you, that you guys see that I don't? Or are you somewhere in the middle like me, where you think it's okay, it's, like, decent, but it's nothing good, it's nothing bad, it is what it is, it's fine, it's good, you know, it's okay, it's decent. I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. I will play more Scooby Doo content on the way. I obviously will, you know, be continuing Scooby Doo for the 2024 summer special and Scooby month. Scooby's going to be the focus for a while, you know, for the next month or 2 or 3. So be on the lookout for that. I should hopefully be done the new Scooby Doo movie season 1, and I definitely think I'll get these re-reviews finished by the end of the summer special. If not, then by the end of, you know, by Scooby month. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. In my next video, I will continue my 2024 summer special with a review of Season 1, Episode 10 of the new Scooby Doo movies. which is the Laurel and Hardy episode. So if you're interested in my thoughts on that, then you can check that out next time. But after that, we will continue my re-reviews of Scooby Doo Who Are You with Season 1, Episode 6 of Scooby Doo Who Are You, What the Heck's Going On, which is the Elias Kingston episode. So it'll be interesting to go back to that. I think I gave a lot of praise to that. I don't remember my star rating on it, but I think I ranked it highly. I think I did like that episode, so we'll see how that is. I think it's also viewed highly by the Scooby Doo community, so we'll see if it still holds up. I'm interested to see if the Elias Kingston episode holds up, but if you want to know my updated thoughts on the Elias Kingston episode, then join me after the next new Scooby Doo movies review, and you'll get to hear my opinions and thoughts on that episode. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
Where are you? We got some work to do now. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We need some help from you now. Come on, Scooby-Doo, I see you. Pretending you got a silver. You're not here with me, 'cause I can see the way you shake and shimmer. We got a mystery to solve.